here to talk about the lost history of the Kurds. I will start by an introduction, and then why history of the Kurds matter. Some people say it doesn't matter. Who cares about history? So we discuss this issue as well. Later on, we look at modern view about the Kurd. I will bring some evidence how academia, how academic institutions around the world currently. So how academic institutions currently see the Kurds. I will show you the evidence, and we look at the old view as well, how the ancient documents, how they saw the Kurdish people. So I'm going to look at the evidence of writing. Through evidence of writing, I will show you who the Kurds are. And later on, we would look at the agricultural evidence, just again to see who the Kurds are and where did they come from. Now, I believe what's currently called what's currently called Kurdish history is not theirs. It's a history written by colonial power to serve political agendas. I don't believe in conspiracy theory. Anything I say based on evidence, because if we don't base our argument on evidence, it won't be academic argument. So we conclude the afternoon, and I will listen to your questions. I try to speak for 45 minutes, and later on I'll take your questions. Introduction. From childhood, I'm a Kurd. At home, we were Kurdish. But outside home, I didn't find myself. In the history book of Iraq, I was born in South Kurdistan. So in the history books, I was trying to find any mention of Kurds, but we didn't exist. So I lived in this parallel world. At home, my father told me, you are a Kurd and you have to remain a Kurd. But outside my home, the book told me differently. We didn't exist. So we existed and we didn't exist. So that encouraged me to question who we are. Where did we come from? Why this contradiction exist? For years, I focused my study on studying the history of the Kurd, understanding where did they come from. But one day, about 15 years ago, I was looking at a paper about Manian. They ruled east and south Kurdistan, mainly east of Kurdistan. These people, they were rulers about 3,000 years ago. So while I was reading the paper, suddenly I saw this name. A ruler of Manian 3,000 years ago was called Azar. 3,000 years ago. Azar in Kurdish language means brave. But I didn't jump to conclusion. I said maybe this is just coincidence. Maybe it's not a Kurdish name. But later on, I saw another name, Baghdadi. Baghdadi again was a name of a ruler. Baghdadi in Kurdish, Bagzada, which means born of the Lord. Bagzada, I think most of you heard of that name. So suddenly I said no. History on its own cannot answer our question, our aim of finding about it. We need language as well. So my journey, about 15 years ago, I started studying ancient languages. Sumerian, Hurrian, Hittite, Avestan, Pahlavi, Old Persian, Luwian, and some other languages. I suddenly found that with history on its own is not enough. So I started the journey of understanding the Kurd through language as well. So why history of the Kurds matters? I love water. This one, sorry. So that question, some people say, who cares? Today it's important. Who cares? In reality, I think every history matters, because history of any people on planet Earth is part of the history of humanity. If we don't understand part of that history, that means there's a gap in our understanding. So if we don't understand history of any nation, any people, that means there's a gap in our understanding about history of humanity. But history of the Kurd matters more. Let me show you why it matters more. Look, this is a map of Kurdistan. I didn't draw it. This is, it was drawn by an organization about 70 years ago. So this is the map of Kurdistan. Here, this is Fertile Crescent. Have you heard of Fertile Crescent? Anyone heard Fertile Crescent? Okay. Fertile Crescent, we call it in Kurdish, Kawani Bakit. Many human civilization started there. There are two milestones. Agricultural revolution started there, and animal domestication. You see, can you turn off your mobile, please? Today we talk about industrial revolution. We never talk about agricultural revolution. In the matter of fact, agricultural revolution was more important than industrial revolution. Because for the first time, humanity, before that, they were hunter-gatherer, they were hunting, they had every day run after gathering food. But suddenly, when they started the agriculture, they had food surplus or extra food. So they had the pleasure of sitting down and enjoying the time. So that way, that is how the civilization and profession started. Because suddenly we had food surplus, so we can sit down and listen to music. We can listen to stories. We had time for that. So that's how civilization started. So Kurdistan is in the heart of beginning of human civilization, which is agricultural revolution and animal domestication. Now, if we don't understand the Kurd who live on that land, that means we don't understand the beginning of civilization, because this is the land where the civilization started from. Now, maybe some of you Kurdish children from new generation discovery, you try to Google it. Who are the Kurds? Maybe try to find out. This is a major organization called Britannica. Britannica has another name, British Encyclopedia. This organization is considered an academic organization, so anything they say, we consider it academic. Now, look at the view of this organization about the Kurd. Today, as we are speaking, look, we read it together. The traditional Kurdish way of life was nomadic, revolving around sheep and goat herding throughout the Mesopotamian plains and the highland of Turkey and Iran. So Kurds were nomads. The traditional way, we were nomad on the mountains on Turkey and Iran. Most Kurds, I highlighted those comments. Look, most Kurds practice only marginal agriculture. So Kurds didn't know agriculture. They were just herders. The enforcement of national boundaries beginning after the World War I embedded their seasonal migration of the flocks, forcing the most of the Kurds to abandon their traditional way of village life and settle farming. So, thank God, when they drew this map, according to Britannica, Kurds started to settle and they started agriculture. Before that, they didn't know. They were nomad on these mountains. So this is academic view about the Kurd of today. This is the view of one of the biggest organizations in the world. Now, I will show you an example old view about the Kurd. This man is very important. I love this man. His name is Ben Wahshiyah. He's not Kurdish. He's Chaldean. Chaldean, we call them New Babylonian as well. These people they were considered people of science by the Greek. And this particular man, he was linguist and agriculturalist. Around the world, he is known as one of the top agriculturalists in the history of humanity. Remember, he's Chaldean, he's not Kurdish. This is his view about the Kurds. This is 1,200 years ago. Look, the Chaldean or New Babylonian were the wisest men of their times, well acquainted with every science and art. The Kurds debated them and wanted to be their equal. So 1,200 years ago, Kurds wanted to debate the Chaldean and wanted to be their equals. Okay? The first superiority Kurds had over them was in agriculture and botany. So 1,200 years ago, Kurds were better than, according to a Chaldean man, better than Chaldean in agriculture. Okay? They claim to descend from Banu Shad. Kurd claim to Banu Shad is one of the wise men of Mesopotamia. He's a well-known figure. And to have to got possession of Book of Adam. This is very interesting. The Kurds, they said he had Book of Adam of agriculture. Adam is not the Adam of biblical books of Islam and Christianity and Judaism. This is the original Sumerian Adam. You will see in the book the detail. I can't give you all that detail, but you can find out about that. So the Kurds, 1,200 years ago, had the books of Adam of agriculture. And the man said, Kurds are superior to them. I saw in Baghdad 30 books written in this alphabet. This is the Kurdish alphabet 1,200 years ago. Okay? The man said, I saw 30 books written in Kurdish about what? About vine and palm tree. Okay? And how to find water in a known area. So he found 30 books, but he had two books. Look, I translate them from Kurdish language into Arabic for the benefit of mankind. So our books were translated to Arabic 1,200 years ago for the benefit of mankind. As you saw, there's a major contradiction between these two views. Look, most Kurd practice only marginal, so they didn't know agriculture. But here, 1,200 years ago, we were superior to everyone in agriculture. Look, the difference is huge. Here, Kurds were nomad, but here our books were translated to other languages. Any science, any field in the world, when there's a contradiction, when there's a big differences, that means we have a problem. We have a problem in this field. We misunderstood the Kurds because this two views tells you there's a major gap. So together we try to find which one is based on evidence. The view, modern view by Britannica or old view by Bilmashi. Now, this is Kurdistan. This is the map by myself, basically. I've chosen few areas of Kurdistan. An example, for example, Gre Mirazan. In Turkish, they changed the name to Göbekli Tepe, but I use the Kurdish name. This is the oldest temple on planet Earth. 12,000 years ago. There is nothing before that. So this is on Kurdish land. Okay? This is Bestan Sur. Bestan Sur is those who are from south. This is outside Zmani, 11,000 years old. Gerdara near Kermanshan, this is 10,000 years old. And this is in Rojava, 8,000 years old. So I've just chosen an example for you. So archaeology tells us that Kurdistan is the beginning of civilization started there. But are these people related to the Kurd? There's a project called Central Zagros Project. Currently, while we are speaking now, there's teams of Britain, I'm not sure about Finland. There's a team from Britain, France, Italy, Japan, and other countries. They try to understand the process of how human transform from hunter-gatherers to agriculturalists, how they settle. So any village around the world, the oldest village is still found on the mountain Zagros, on Kurdish land. Are these people related to us? I look at this two evidence. Agriculture and writing to understand whether these people are ancient Kurds or they are not related to them. And just to prove, modern view about the Kurd is accurate or old view. Language. As I told you, these archaeological sites of Kurdistan, they found a lot of evidence there. One of the things that they found, we call it clay token. Let me explain clay token. When they had agriculture, a lot of wheat and food, humans started to have a lot of extra food. So they needed to exchange. For example, this village had a lot of oil. That village had a lot of wheat. So they exchanged it. So this was the business exchange. For example, this represented sheep. That represented oil. That represented another material. So these are the beginning of civilization. Humanity started exchanging. You can find that these are everywhere in Kurdistan. The site I talked to you about, you will find that. Now, as you can see, these are the places where they found the places on the mountain of Kurdistan, mainly. So around 5,000 years ago, some people said, why we make these things? Let's just draw it. It's easy. Look, what they did, this symbol was what sheep mark. So the symbol gradually changed to writing. Look, this is cattle. It was like that gradually to this. So everything became, currently we call it cuneiform or khatimehi. So this is what we see, this is Sumerian language, the first written language on planet Earth. This is how humanity transformed from this symbol to that. It took 5,000 years to move to that. But is this language? We know. Who's there? Okay. We know. Okay, we are sure that these are found in Kurdistan. And these are found in Mesopotamia. But are they, which language? We don't know this language. So together, can you close the door, please? Okay, together we look at this language, this first written language in the history of mankind. Look. By the way, I don't translate any word from Sumerian. I'm not translator of the language. I'm linguist, but I don't translate. This is not my job. There are academic institutions around the world, they carried out the translation. So any word in my book you will find is not from me. It's from top academic books. For example, this is Pennsylvania University. This is Horan, one of the best dictionary of Sumerian language. This is Dictionary of Gods and Goddesses. Basically, I am using this as grammar of Sumerian. I use evidence. Anything you want to challenge, you have to face these top academic institutions. I use. Now, let's look at some of the word. I chose this word related to human feeling and body. Look. Look, the two meaning in both Sumerian, two meaning hasn't changed after 5,000 years. Okay? This is Bur. Bur, this is the area. This area in Kurdish we call it Bar. In Sumerian was Bur. In English is Koch. Do is exactly the same to speak the root of the word in Kurdish. Do in Sumerian is do without any change after 5,000 years. Fart, sorry, those who understand, hasn't changed again after 5,000. This is how the language is. The Kurdish language is like it's a miracle. How this language kept itself after so many different people arrived and we still kept our language. Look, Iri, sometimes you hear in Germian, Damari Mari, Iri. Iri is Sumerian. Iri. Exactly hardly changed after 5,000 years. Gal, growing, this area in Kurdish they call it Gal, and in Sumerian is Gal. Geli in Sumerian after 5,000 years. Now, Giri Giriya. Look, two form. Giri Giriya in Sumerian, Giri Giriya in Kurdish. The two form. And look, Kraihe and Kraihe. So the same word, we have two form of the same word with the Sumerian. this is like a miracle for the world. Now, this is in Kurdish called Yebara, name in English. That's in Sumerian Upar. Kish, I don't have here, unfortunately, but some of you have Kish, you understand, that's the word is shaggy here. So it hasn't changed after 5,000 years. Skin, cash, anyone speaks Russian? Slavic language? Anyone? By the way, you can see that word in kozha in Russian language. Yeah, kozha. So this is the Sumerian, this is Kurdish, and you can find it in Bulgarian, Polish, and Russian, and other languages. Mil, look, mil is mil, hardly change. Me, male, female, look, that's exact word. I haven't touched anything. This you can find that in the top dictionary around the world. Nu, to sleep, and nu, exactly the same word. Scratch, look, two forms of the same word, you can find it in both Sumerian and Kurdish after 5,000 years. Now, these are some of the gods and goddesses. Sumerian. Look, Daner, Didner, sender of justice. Adalet Ner, Adalet Dadwari Ner. That was how they created the word of God in Sumerian. The sender of justice. Exactly the same meaning after 5,000 years, sender of justice in Kurdish language. Now, fire in Kurdish is good. In Sumerian was god of fire. Look, hasn't changed. Kurd in Kurdish mean high mountain. In Sumerian mean mountain. So, high great mountain in Kurdish and in Sumerian great mountain. That was the name of a god. So most of the Sumerian god is still the same. Now, Nana, when you say Nana, that is the Sumerian word. Nin means female, place, great. That is another goddess, Sumerian goddess. The meaning hasn't changed in Kurdish language, again, after 5,000 years. Some of you may be old. Have you heard of Allah? Anyone heard of Allah? Yes or no? Yes, Allah? Okay. In Kurdish culture, when a woman give birth to a child, Kurds are superstitious. They say there's a demon might attack their woman. So they protect no one leave the new mother because they believe that demon attack you. So this is the same demon in Sumeria. Shara, Sumerian warrior god in Kurdish mean fire and fight and war. Utu Hatau, sun god, as you can see, most of you speak Kurdish and you can see it hasn't changed. So I don't want to spend more time on that. Now, who's from East Kurdistan? Rojalat. Okay. In Rojalat we say Slamaka. This is Sumerian. This is the Sumerian Slamaka without, I haven't touched any word. Slamaka today in the village of East Kurdistan, they say Slamaka. Now more words. This is Galwood, scratch grain. After 5,000 years, scratch grain hasn't changed. Gal Quran. Look, I haven't touched any words. This is how the language is. And this is more complex sentence. Amamu ezin ninda'aka. Amam jajannanaka. That's how this 5,000 our grandfathers said the language. Look, word by word, as you can see. So this is how this language preserves itself. Now, today in the village you can say, heard sometime, Aida ubiyada, Aida ubiyada. Have you heard that? Have you heard that? Aida ubiyada? Okay. This is actually, if you translate that to, this is the Kurdish one. Aida ubiyada or Aida ubiyada. In Sumerian, it's exactly, if you translate it, it becomes iyadidu biyadid. Wu is exactly the same word, and that's how they wrote the word. Be, benan. This is exactly the same word. Okay? And you can, this is history. This is a clear connection with the Kurdish language. Now, Kurdish is considered Indo-European language. Now, everyone in the world, everyone says Sumerian died 4,000 years ago. It's unrelated to any language. I am the only one now coming and say to the world, no, Sumerian is not a dead language. Sumerian is connected to Indo-European language. Let me show you an example. Look, Iwutu in Sumerian means or sun, or heat, or light. 3 meanings. Look, I had down in Kurdish. In English, ohit, same meaning. And in German, ohitze. Look, this could be just coincidence. Let's see another example. Ludu. Okay? In Kurdish, la nagre. In Italian, lui non dice. This is French, il ne dit pas. Look, you can see every word. This is history. And even in Spanish, again. So, I am challenging the world based on evidence. I tell them, no, Sumerian didn't die. We need to understand Kurdish to understand the how language of civilization developed. How Western. So, that's why the title of my book says, Rediscovering the Origin of Western Civilization and the Origin of Indo-European Languages. Because through Kurdish language, we can understand the beginning of civilization and how language evolved. Now, more example. This is Slamnan Ibisigiria. Look, Slamnan Ibisigiria in Kurdish. In Italian, Saluto nonna, basta grido. Look, and in English, only this word has changed. Okay? As you can see, the meaning little bit different. But this is history. This is for those who mainly languages from Slavic, Russian and other language. Nazan or Nazu, look. This is in Latin, Russian, Serbian. By the way, no one in the world done this research. This is new research. That's why I'm here. I will be in Germany next month. I will go on tour on 6 cities. There's a plan to go to Austria and America beginning of next year. So I want to challenge institution and go there to the university, tell them this is the real history based on evidence. Now, did the Kurd know that the language was Sumerian? Look, Kurds, as you remember, I showed you in the beginning, bin Washida. The Kurd claim what? They had the 7 books of creation. They claim to have all the 7 of the Andalusian books inspired by heaven. So the Kurd believed that they had the 7th book of the Sumerian. So they said it 1200 years ago. So Kurd in the past, they knew their history. They knew who they came from. And they said they have the book of Adam, if you remember. Adam is Sumerian Adam. Before the mention of Adam in Bible and in Quran and in Torah, Adam was a Sumerian figure. He brought civilization. So Kurd believed that they have the book of Adam. So Kurd knew about that. Now, until now, I spoke about language. But I showed you that agriculture, the archaeology tells us that agriculture started in Kurdistan. Now, let's look at the evidence. Did we know that? Did we have agriculture? About 2,000 years ago, can you close the door, please? If you have any question, feel free to ask me, please. So, look, 2,000 years ago, a man called Strabo. Strabo was a historian, a Greek historian. He came to Jazira Watan from North Kurdistan. It was called, those days, it was called Kurdain, okay? And he called the Kurdish people Gordis. He said, Gordis, son of Triptolemus, is related to colonized Kurdain. So Kurdistan was colonized by Gordi, Kurd, son of Triptolemus. This is very interesting. In Greek mythology,
Triptolemus is what? Is demigod, inventor of agriculture and civilization. So in Greek mythology, Kurds were responsible for invention of agriculture and civilization. So Greek recorded this, that the Kurds were the start and the beginning of the civilization. And this is more interesting. There's a team in 1997, they found wheat. Do you know wheat, Ganem? In North Kurdistan. And they said, Karajadak are very probably the site of domestication. So, archaeology supports Greek mythology. Greek said the Kurds were inventor. The father of the Kurd was inventor of agriculture and civilization. But archaeology as well proved the same thing. This team found that the wheat in this area is the first domesticated wheat. And this man called Al-Jaziri, by the way, I'm not saying he's Kurdish. Britannica, everyone said this man is Kurdish. Al-Jaziri lived where? In the area where the Greek man went. This man created one of the best robot and anything related to water engineering, because the expertise of water was among the Kurd. This is the work of this Kurdish man. He worked in Jazira Watan. He's called Al-Jaziri. By the way, do you know Leonardo da Vinci? Yeah. You've heard. According to Britannica, Leonardo da Vinci learned from this man. When he designed his book, he learned from this book. Because before Leonardo da Vinci, this man was one of the top designers around the world. So this is evidence that 800 years ago, there was a Kurdish man who was a top engineer, water engineering around the world. Now, there's another man called Abu Hanifa. Abu Hanifa wrote one of the best books about agriculture called An-Nabat. So this book, during Islamic era, about 1200 years ago, that was one of the top books about agriculture. So, language and agriculture, as you can see, we have evidence that these two were prevalent among the Kurd. Now, you might ask me, why today you are coming here, you tell us different history? In the matter of fact, there is a man, he was from Babylon. 2,300 years ago, the history he wrote was different from the current history studied in university. This man said the origin of kingship of Babylon started by the Mede. Okay? So no historian currently tell you that civilization or kingship started. But this man who was indigenous to the area, his view about history was different. So my history is related to the history of this man because we are indigenous and from the same area. Now, about a month ago, exactly 27th of last month, a team of, this is the top institution in Germany. They call Max Planck Institute of Evolutionary Anthropology. This is the top organization in Germany. Last month, issued a new paper. It says, original of Indo-European languages coming from here. Exactly Kurdistan. But they don't say Kurdistan, because politically, you can't say Kurdistan. It is exactly there. Before, they were saying it's in around here, but now they moved it exactly to Kurdistan. So everything I say today, I say it to you. Now, institutions, they know it, but they study without the Kurds. Because in their mind, Kurds are nomads. Kurds have no civilization. So we don't look at the Kurds scientifically. The current books written around institutions around the world is not scientific, because its foundation is political. Currently it's not, but 200 years ago when they started writing that history, it's political. Otherwise, anything I tell you that, by the way, I said the Indo-European language started from Kurdistan in 2013. I said the same thing 10 years before that, in my previous book and this book. But they just found out about that. So, why history of the Kurd became like that? Again, Britannica. Today, if you look for, you know, Salahuddin, okay. If you read in Britannica, it says Sunni Muslim dynasty. So they don't say Kurdish. Sunni Muslim of Kurdish descent. Now, look at the Turkish dynasty, how they describe it in Britannica. Zangid, Turkish dynasty, look, Muslim Turkic dynasty. But for the Kurd, they call it Sunni Muslim. But for the Turk, see, Kurds are missing. So this is how they write history. This is how they exclude the Kurds from the history books. Now, this book is in one of the museums in Turkey, okay? Anyone, some of you read Kurdish. Okay, I know that, thanks. Now, look at the title, History of the Kurds. Talks about Salahuddin. So Salahuddin state was called Tarikh Dawlat al-Kurd, History of the State of the Kurds. So Salahuddin was defined as a Kurdish state 800 years ago, okay? But someone in Turkey, they added Wal-Atrak and the Turk. So this is how they play with our history. Look, this is a manuscript in Turkey. Someone with, as you can see, played with the thing. This is the title of the state of Salahuddin. So every day, I come back to the beginning. If you remember, I showed you Britannica. So look, what you are studying and what our children study currently, and what the top academic institutes like Cambridge, Harvard, and name it, they don't study Kurd scientifically, and they don't look at them objectively. They stereotype the Kurd are nomad. Kurd has no civilization. So this is how they approach, this is how they look at us. So that's why this is what's written about us. And this is the other one, ancient view. So as you saw, the older view about the Kurd is based on evidence. The new view about the Kurd is political. It is not based on evidence. Conclusion. So, in the beginning, as I told you, in the last 200 years ago, Western scholars started to come to become more interact with the Middle East. So they started writing about the Kurds about 200 years ago. Those days, Europe, they were nationalists. They were trying to find a great past about themselves. So they invented Aryan theory. Aryan theory is not scientific. And in that theory, gradually, they came to the area, Britain and France, they divided these countries. When they divided this country, Kurd didn't exist on the map. Because we didn't exist on the map, academic institutions of Western power, they followed the same politic. Kurd doesn't exist in the book of history. We don't exist. And the reason is not because we don't exist, because it was in the interest of the political power for us to not exist. For that map to be legitimate, the map of division of Kurdistan. And I say in Kurdish quickly as well. دوسە ساڵم پێش ئەم هێزانە هات ناوچەی ڕۆژهەڵاتیەوە ڕاست ئەمان بە دوای خۆیان ناگەڕن یان ویست ڕابردوویەکی گەورە و مەزن بۆ خۆیان دروستکەن کۆمەڵی تیۆری ئاری و ئەمانیان داهێنا دوایی نزیکی سە ساڵم پێش هاتن ئەم نەخشەی ئەم ڕایان دروست کرد کە ئەم نەخشەی ڕۆژهەڵاتی ناوەڕاست لەم نەخشەیە کورد دەرکراوە کوردی تیانێت لەبەرەوە هەرچی دەستگا ئەکادیمیەکانی بەریتانیا و فەرەنسا و ئەم وڵاتانە لەسەر هەمان سیاسەت مادەم کورد لەم نەخشەیانیە منیش وەکو ئەکادیمیەکی بەریتانی من بۆ مناڵم ئەو کەسێک کە دەوێت کارەکە لەسەر هەمان سیاسەت ئەمڕۆ بۆیە تۆ لە پەرتووکانی تۆ لە پەرتووکە تەنها شوانێکی بەڵام ئەمە بابەتێکی زانستی بە بابەتێکی سیاسیە کە تۆ لەو مێژووە لابرای. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm happy to listen to your question, whether in Kurdish or English. سپاس بۆ جۆگرتنتان. هەست پرسیارە هەشتێکتان هەیە ئەتوانم وەڵام بدەم.